You're listening to Resonating with Emmet O'Malley. Hey everybody, how's it going there? You're very welcome to Resonating with Emmet O'Malley. I hope you're having a nice Tuesday. How are you all doing? Hello. Lovely to be back here again with the podcast this week. We have a very special guest on the show this week, Michael Redmond. He is a legendary comedian, both in Ireland and also in the UK. You would know him from his role in Father Ted. He plays Father Stone in episode 2 of Father Ted, entertaining Father Stone. I remember seeing this when I was a teenager, thinking like, it doesn't get much better than this. Just the whole scenario, this incredibly deadpan priest just sitting there and everybody struggling to make conversation, and I don't know, just the characters involved, the combination of the actors and the chemistry, and it's just unbelievable. It's comedy magic. I was going to say comedy gold, but it's more than comedy gold. Anyway, it's amazing stuff. Check that out. Have a bit of a re-watch of episode 2, season 1 of Father Ted, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Michael has been a good friend of mine since we met on the comedy scene back in 2007. I was in a competition called the Toilet Duck Award, and I actually got to the final. I was very pleased with myself, which was on the Aran Islands, which is off the coast, the west coast of Ireland, and I think it was on Inishmore, which is the bigger one of the islands. And the idea was there would be a bunch of us in the competition on first, and while the judges were making up their mind on who would win the Toilet Duck Award, Michael Redmond entertained the crowd. And I remember on the night, it was kind of bizarre because Michael's delivery is quite deadpan, and he's kind of does a lot of one-liners, and this place was full of a bunch of pissed up people in their early 20s, and everyone was just making so much noise. It was a rowdy night, but it was literally even still Michael could go up there and like just kind of kill, basically. At one point, I may be wrong, I don't know if this is a correct memory or if this is a bizarre dream, but someone got up on the stage and Michael was giving him piggybacks around the stage, and then he just got off and Michael just went into a couple of gags, and yeah, anyway, bizarre circumstances, but that's where I met Michael. And then a few months later I was chosen to perform in Vicar Street in Dublin, which was a big gig for me, and it was actually connected to Father Ted as well. It was called A Night, I think, in memory of Dermot Morgan, something like that. It was the 10-year anniversary of Dermot Morgan's passing. Rest in peace. And there was basically different actors from Father Ted, different comedians from the Irish circuit who had been on Father Ted and had become really well known, like Ardlo Hanlon and Joe Rooney and, of course, Michael Redmond. And I got selected as a newcomer on the scene, which was really such a privilege to perform on the night in front of 1,000 people. I'm pretty sure I bombed. I'm pretty sure it was really bad. I think I did one joke that just had a bit of a ooh. It wasn't like that, oh, this is a terrible joke. It's like he didn't say that, did he? Oh God. Yeah, it was a bit tense. I just don't remember it going that well. But Michael was on that night, and we started working on something else together after that. We got on well, and yeah, known him ever since. But it kind of came to a nice it kind of came back around a couple of years ago when I made a documentary series called I was going to say short. No, I made a short documentary series. No, I made a documentary series of short films. There we go, called Portraits, and that's up on YouTube. If you want to watch it, you can go to youtube.com/wakinghourfilms and just you'll find it there. The Portrait series. There's 3 episodes, and yeah, I went up to Glasgow with my buddy Clive, and we filmed Michael for a few days and interviewed him, and made this cool little documentary, and I'm really proud of it. And so check that out on YouTube. That is a nice little insight into Michael and what makes him tick, and you see him like performing in Glasgow there, and like, yeah, what a beautiful city as well. It was such a privilege, the whole lot. Anyway, I'm talking to Michael today, Michael Redmond, and he is a legend on the London stand-up scene back in the 80s. And one thing that really struck me was, and I talked to him about this, one thing that really struck me was that there was so little people doing comedy back then compared to now. There was plenty of people doing comedy here in London, but for example, when he moved over from Ireland to London to do comedy, like there was very, very, very little people doing that at the time. So it's such a unique thing to do, I guess, at the time. And yeah, such a unique guy, and yeah, really cool guy. Also, make sure to check out Michael on irishify.com. That's Irish and then ify.com, where you can hire Michael to do a shout out, basically. So you can go on there, you can hire him to say like happy birthday or happy Holy Communion, but he'll do it as Father Stone from Father Ted. And yeah, so if you want Father Stone to just pop up in one of your friends' inbox sometime this week, irishify.com, you can find him there. Also, to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/Emmet O'Malley and sign up there. You get music every month, you get videos, you get a weekly podcast called Private Pod, which is a bit of fun. So yeah, why not sign up at patreon.com/Emmet O'Malley. Also, we'd really appreciate it if you listen on Apple Podcasts to give us a rating and a review, or give us a follow on Spotify. Check out the podcast on YouTube and subscribe. It's Emmet O'Malley Music. The same on Instagram and Facebook. That's Emmet O'Malley Music. Why not check out my music while you're there? There's loads of music on YouTube and Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever else you listen to music. And share it around. It all goes to support this podcast. So whatever you find, well, give it a listen, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so here we go. Here's my chat with the lovely Michael Redmond.
I've quite enjoyed being in lockdown. I haven't sort of been going insane because I'm not gigging. I've sort of done other stuff on social media and things like that, and I'm also starting to write a book called The Diary of a Comedian in Lockdown. So.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So it's just a silly little jokey diary, you know. It's not a big novel thing or anything, but just kind of a jokey diary, you know.
That's awesome. Yeah. The thing you always said before as well is like that you, like, first and foremost, you're a writer. Like
that's what I see. I would see myself initially as a writer, yeah. But not a serious writer, unfortunately. I can't write novels or plays or anything like that. It's just a joke writer, basically, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, though. Like, I just love like, there's a kind of a sense of kind of peace around that compared to, like, I know when I was doing comedy, like, I loved trying to come up with the stuff as well. I was quite I was quite immature, I think, when I was doing it, but when I was like, I loved the coming up with the stuff, but the going on stage and like kind of getting the validation, that part of it was like the crucial part at that point in my life. Like I needed that.
Exactly. The thing is, you write a joke and you can think that's great, but you don't know until you actually tell it on stage.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether it's good or not, you know. I mean, so many times I've sort of written jokes. I think that's brilliant. that's really going to storm it, and then it just gets nothing, you know.
Yeah.
And then there are other times where just a joke comes into your head and you think, oh, that's okay, but then you tell it on stage and everybody loves it. You just never know, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter how long you've been doing it, I think you can get more of a sense the longer you're doing it, but you can still never be sure until you actually tell it on stage. That's why it's scary, I suppose, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing worse than a joke that bombs.
Definitely.
Particularly if you've been expecting it to go well as well, you know.
Yeah, that's the worst. Actually, that's the worst. Or a whole set, you know. And sometimes it can, you know, like I think usually a great joke will carry through, like under most circumstances. But there are situations where, no matter what's going on, there's a bad vibe there, and you know.
In those circumstances, there's nothing you can do. Yeah, it's just you just have to take it on the chin and just forget about it, you know.
Yeah. And you've been doing these shout outs as well. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's an Irish company called irishify.com. It's similar to the Cameo people who do it in England and America. It's sort of people who are sort of relatively well known, and say somebody is say you have a brother who you know is a fan of Father Stone, for instance.
Yeah, you
could get a video of me wishing him a happy birthday or happy anniversary or happy divorce, whatever he's going through at the time. Yeah. And so the site is called irishify.com. So I've been doing those since last August, in fact. So it's great. It's quite easy because I just have to hold the phone up to my face and record a video for 30 or 40 seconds, you know, and then I send it to them, and then they send it on to the person who's asked for it, you know. It's only €30 ago, so not too expensive.
Oh, that's cool, you know, and I love your kind of I love your love for the Father Stone thing as well, because you know you wear it well, you know what I mean. It's like you don't like kind of.
It's partly me, I suppose, really as well.
Yeah,
if I'm being honest, it's not miles away from me. I mean, it is obviously to a degree, you know. I don't go around just staring at people and saying I'm fine all the time. That should be a bit weird.
This podcast, for example, would be quite difficult in those circumstances.
It would be very difficult. Yeah, I remember once actually. I compare the stand, or I used to compare the stand every Sunday in Glasgow.
Yeah.
And this woman came up to me afterwards. I think she was over from Ireland on holidays, and she says, "Yeah, I came to see because of the Father Stone thing." But so I was, to be honest with you, I was a little bit disappointed. I thought you'd be a bit more like Father Stone on stage. And apart from the fact that I was actually comparing.
Can you not be a little bit more boring?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Could you just stand there and not say anything and just introduce an act or something?
Yeah. Oh man, the I don't know, the legacy of Father Ted, the legacy of that character, but the legacy of the whole thing is unbelievable. Like how it's still going on, and
it's
like how many years ago was that? You know, like
it was 94 when I filmed my episode. 27 years ago. Yeah, 28 years ago. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem to be abating at all, you know. I mean, it seems to.
No.
It's incredible.
No, it's like that, just that thing that, you know, good stuff. It just, because it's of the time as well. Like it's people kind of, it's the kind of thing that it's so classic as well that I think people want to almost make stuff that will almost like aim for that bar, like, you know, because the bar has been set with these great shows. You know, there's a bunch of like classics, and it's definitely one of them now, isn't it? Like,
I think it is. There's no doubt. Yeah, I mean, it's just I say it just seems to be timeless. But I saw that because it was, you know, it's fairly timeless. It wasn't sort of just of the time, you know. So that's why it's carrying on, I suppose. You know.
Yeah. No, that's really.
Cool. Most good comedy, I think, will survive. Time will just, you know, most good stuff is fairly timeless, unless it's meant to be topical. Then obviously, you know, it's of the time.
Yeah. I've been thinking recently that that what is definitely needed these days, I think, is a kind of a bit of a return to a bit of the silliness and a bit of the kind of like kind of madcap kind of stuff, and just very.
That's what Father Ted was, really. Yeah, just it's nonsense, but inspired nonsense, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Nonsense with a bit of weight to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah. Well, that's the sort of comedy I like. I must say, it's just sort of nonsense with a bit of intelligence attached to it. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And characters as well, just solid characters. You know, I think we were talking about that before.
Well, I think that's the basis. Yeah, that's what we mentioned. The basis of all good sitcoms is the characters, because if the characters aren't very well drawn in the first place, then the jokes are forced. They should come naturally from the characters. It's not the actual. Sometimes it's not the actual joke itself; it's the fact that the character is saying those words. If you know what I mean.
Yes.
Wouldn't be funny from anybody else saying it apart from that character.
Yeah, and you were kind of mentioning before that, like, was it like Graham Linehan and Arthur Matthews? They kind of like they approached you before they even started in production with the whole thing.
Yeah, it was. I was doing a gig in the Bloomsbury Theatre. It was an Irish night of comedians, and it was myself and Dylan Moran and Ardle and somebody else, I think. Yeah, after the show was in the sort of the lobby. Can you say that? Is it lobby or foyer? Lobby too American. The foyer of the theatre.
I don't know which one of those words you'll get cancelled for, but you know.
Exactly. Yeah. The front bit of the theatre. Anyway. And these two guys came up to me and said that they'd written a sitcom about the three Irish priests on a remote island in the west of Ireland, and they thought there might be a part for me in it. And I'm being honest, I thought it sounded like a lot of crap, really. Three priests. I mean, it isn't, obviously. It was brilliant, but I mean, you know, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know them, and I just heard that, you know, three priests on a remote island in Ireland. I thought, you know, this is going to be the real sort of stereotypical nonsense, you know, but it wasn't, obviously isn't. But then about 6 months later, I just got this call to go into Hat-Trick Production Studio, no, their offices, sorry. And I didn't get the impression it was an audition. Most auditions I've gone to before, you kind of, you're put in a chair on your own. There's a camera in front of you, and there's some impersonal producer, you know, about 20 yards away from you. But it was just myself and Graham and Arthur and Jeffrey Perkins, who was the producer, kind of just sit around a table kind of thing. They just asked me to read a few lines from the Father Stone scripts, which I did. And I was told later that Jeffrey Perkins, I think, was a bit slightly wary of me, as because he just saw me. He just knew my stand-up, so he didn't think I could act, really. Which he's quite right, I can't, but I can act. I can act as Father Stone or similar, you know. But apparently, what convinced Jeffrey Perkins that I'd be good for the part was when that bit where Father Ted is trying to get me out of the house, and then eventually, in desperation, he says, "There's a fire. Will you leave now?" And I say, "Well, yeah, if there's a fire."
Yes.
So that's what convinced Jeffrey Perkins, I think.
Oh, brilliant! The thing they say about that that night at the Bloomsbury Theatre, you know, it makes me think that these moments that you were probably going through, and at the time it was like, and like, let's say you're approached about what became like one of the enduring legacies of your career, basically, that night. But it's funny in the moment how basically I'm just trying to accept these days that I have no bloody clue like what something is like unless I try it, you know?
Oh, totally, yeah. I mean, it's as I said, when I started doing comedy, I didn't deliberately I deliberately did one-liners because I'd written them, but I didn't deliberately pause after them. It just kind of happened, really. It was just kind of organic. It wasn't kind of like, I didn't sit down in my flat one day and think, I'll do a gag and then I'll just pause and stare at the audience. It just seemed to happen, you know?
Yeah.
It's weird. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, it's kind of just by doing it. Like, it's this thing of, it's like comedy is really, God, I think the most immediate kind of performance thing, really, in that sense, because you literally just have to get up there and do it, you know, no matter how much you think about it or how much you write or whatever. Like, it's great if you can write and you're prepared and all that, but like you will have to get up and actually do it. And then within that's the only place. It's very like music as well with me and at the moment. But it's like by the only way to kind of find what it is that's working for me, or find my own voice or style or whatever, is just kind of just be trying it all different ways. Just keep on going with it all the time, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It must be in a way harder for music. I mean, to gauge an audience's reaction.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you know, at least with comedy, although it's terrifying, you know that if you don't get a laugh, that's not good. You know, if you get a laugh, it's good. But with music, it's kind of more. It's not. That's kind of immediate rush. You won't get an immediate kind of.
Yeah.
You won't know for sure, will you?
No,
whether
not
really
at all.
Like that or not.
Yeah, you get all. I think there's all these different categories of people. You get the people who maybe clearly you can see they're not enjoying it, right? Then you get the ones who clearly they're enjoying it, right? And then you get the ones who aren't enjoying it. Who are enjoying. No, sorry, go back again. Who aren't.
The kind of in between.
Who aren't enjoying it, but who are pretending they're enjoying it.
That's even worse.
And then you get like you get all these different factions in there. There's people who just like you kind of mentioned. There's the ones that don't know if they enjoy it or not, and they're kind of and you can get open-minded ones of them, or you can get like total bastards. So,
yes, of course.
But it's really mixed. Like it's really mixed, and the one thing that I've been doing the last few years, obviously before the lockdown, was playing like loads of gigs in pubs, like Irish pubs and all kinds of pubs around London, where I do loads of just like covers, loads of well-known songs, and it'd be fairly. And I like the kind of smaller pubs. Actually, there's a bit more of an atmosphere, and you just
it's easier to get an atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly.
Smaller,
and just kind of go through the set, and by the end of the night, you really can tell if it's going well because of the atmosphere.
Whether people are looking at you or not.
Yeah, exactly. And there's something about the kind of rawness of those situations that you can gauge it. But the very more like ticketed kind of things where I'm there playing my own stuff, and it's very like a little bit more like there's a bit more
art-centric kind of.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it's open to interpretation. Did I love that, or did I fucking despise that?
Or am I clapping just because I'm in a theatre or an art centre?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's so true. Oh man, yeah. Because laughter, isn't it? Like it's such it's a visceral thing. Like just happens.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it can be it can be infectious as well.
Yeah.
You know, you can get if some people in the audience start laughing, then other people they won't just laugh just because the other people are laughing, but they kind of will get into the kind of feel of the whole thing, you know.
Yeah. When did you first start thinking about writing jokes? Like when did that come up?
Well, I was quite friendly with Dermot Morgan, Father Ted in Dublin, and he used to send in stuff to Mike Murphy. I'm sure you've heard of Mike Murphy.
Yeah. I loved him,
For people in England, it was kind of like. It was the Irish equivalent, not the Irish equivalent because Terry Wogan was also Irish, but the RTE's equivalent of Terry Wogan's morning radio show.
Right. Yeah.
And it was kind of playful, kind of jokey kind of show. So Dermot was sending stuff in, so he said, why don't you try it? So I did, and he started reading some of my stuff out. So that was the first time I ever thought, well, maybe I could actually do this possibly as a career, although that didn't turn into a career because I was only just writing the odd one-liner for RTE radio, so it wasn't exactly going to buy my yacht in the Mediterranean and all that, you know. But it gave me a sense of that I can do this, you know. So that was the first time I ever had sort of anything kind of broadcast, if you like. That was 1980, I think. In fact, I'm sure it was. It's printed on my brain, it was 1980.
Yeah.
And then, there was nothing much. There was no comedy in RTE then. I didn't have any idea for any particular sitcom or anything. I was just sort of writing gags. I realised after a while I'm not going to make a living out of this. And a guy called Billy McGrath, who later became head of comedy in RTE, he has his own production company now. He started a comedy club in Mount Mary, it was near where I live, just in a little basement area, and I started doing a few gigs there. It only lasted about 6 or 7 weeks because it was only myself, and there was a guy called Kevin McAleer, who I'm sure you know, and a couple of others, and
Oh yeah.
then it just faded out really, you know. And then I did a sketch show at Dermot. Then I can't remember how long ago it was after that, maybe about a year. And we did a sketch show. Well, it was his show. I mean, it wasn't him. It was his show, but I had nice bits in it. And he gave me my own bit as well. And it was filmed over about 6 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks, and they had 6 episodes in the can, as they say.
Yeah.
And Dermot was kind of, you know, they said he'd probably be shown on television about 6 months later. 6 months passed anyway, and he still hadn't heard from RTE, and then another few months passed, and eventually, a year later, they said, we're not going to show it at all. We're just going to show a 1 hour special because we just don't think it's strong enough. Which is a shame. I mean, I don't know, because I mean, I wasn't in all the sketches, so I don't know how strong or weak they were. But I mean, there was nothing else on RTE television, and there was nothing offensive in it, so they would have been better off just showing it anyway. You know?
Yeah,
because it was there. They spent the money on it, you know.
Yeah, it's a shame.
So it was after that I mentioned Kevin McAleer earlier. I met him. He'd already gone to London, but I met him in Dublin. I can't remember whether it was by design or whether I just bumped into him. But he was telling me about the circuit in London.
Yeah.
And so I just decided to go.
Amazing. That's cool that it was Kevin McAleer who gave you a bit of like a nudge or something, because yeah, God, he is another one like who I like I put you in this category as well, but like I just like these like amazing Irish comedians. Do you know what I mean? Like he's
just genius. Yes, I mean, everybody mentions his owl slide, the slide of the owls. I don't know if you've seen that or not. I mean, that is brilliant. But he also has some brilliant jokes as well. It's just,
no.
It's just a style. I just love it. Yeah.
He's the kind of comedian that could like transcend all the ages too. Because I remember him being on TV. Totally, and like we were kids watching his, he did this kind of monologue, you know, about like
with the Tyrone man,
and it's like everyone loves it, you know. Everyone can get it, you know. It's unbelievable.
Of course, you can identify it.
Yeah. That's cool.
Great,
yeah. So the how long did it take you to get like involved in the circuit in London then when you went over?
Well, we got involved immediately, but from the point of view of kind of getting paid gigs, it was probably 6 months to a year. I mean, I probably got the odd paid gig after 6 months, but nothing kind of major. But I remember after about 8 or 9 months, I did a few open spots in the Comedy Store, and the guy called Kim Kinney, who used to manage the Comedy Store at the time, just really liked me, and he just started booking me. So I was doing the Comedy Store after about a year after I arrived in London, which was amazing. I couldn't believe it, because I didn't think that was going to happen so quick, you know.
Amazing. That's cool.
So it was great, yeah. But I suppose my style was quite geared to the Comedy Store, because it was very much gag related. Because I mean, the Comedy Store could be a vicious place in those days anyway, because it was just a basement in Leicester Square, and they would have 2 shows on Friday and 2 shows on Saturday, and the second shows would be start at midnight. So you basically have people coming in from the pubs and drinking again in the Comedy Store. So
it's tough work.
If you didn't hit them immediately, you could get booed off very quickly, you know.
Yeah.
So I was lucky that my stuff was very much gag related, and I could hit them straight away. You know?
That's amazing. Yeah. Oh God, I'd give anything to be just like transported back to just like a Saturday night in London, early 80s. Just go into a place like that, because just the it must have been a great vibe, a bit of excitement as well. Because there's a.
I mean, the thing about it is that you know that. So a lot of them were pissed, but I mean, they weren't necessarily always ugly pissed. So if they liked you, it could be a brilliant gig, you know.
Yeah.
Because they'd really let go; they wouldn't sort of hold back. So it was, some of the best gigs of my life have been in the Comedy Store. Yeah. The original Comedy Store, not the original, because the original one was with in Soho, I think. That was with Rick Mail and all that sort of gang.
Okay, yeah.
And Lexi Sale, that's where they started. But then it moved to the basement in Leicester Square, and that's where I do my stuff. It's now just about 100 yards up the road. It's more sophisticated now. It's kind of all proper seating facing the stage. The one I did was a basement, and there was even, you would think it wouldn't work because there was pillars in the way of people's view and everything, but it just didn't seem to make any difference.
Yeah. One thing that's cool is I was in the Comedy Store a couple of years ago. Just kind of went in there one night, and like they still have a picture of you in the lobby, which is cool. In the foyer
really
lobby,
nice,
one of the other
the stairs, I think it is.
and the stairs. Yeah. Yourself
that's
and
right.
like
So somebody did. I saw it in some podcasts some guys did, and they're kind of going into the Comedy Store, and I saw it on the wall as they're not filming mine in particular. They're just filming the guys going into the Comedy Store down the stairs, and I saw the picture on the wall.
Yeah, it's cool.
So they haven't torn it up yet.
No, I think I used that picture as well, the same one in the documentary. You know, in one of the shots.
That's like, right. You did.
Yeah. There's
a lot of people. I get people come up to me who've seen that documentary. They really like it.
Oh man, that's been such a pleasure.
The filming was great. The filming was amazing. Really, it's very atmospheric.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, just to say to anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, I with my good friend Clive, we made a documentary about Michael, like a short documentary, as part of a series we were doing called Portraits. Portraits, yeah. So Michael is the first episode. There's 3 episodes, but so it was cool because that idea came to me like just one night. I was just literally sitting here really late at night. I was like, that'd be good. And I literally emailed you the next day, and then within I think 2 weeks we were up there shooting.
It was very quick. It was very quick.
Yeah, and we spent 3 days, but that was like such a pleasure for me. Like it was also really
likewise.
Yeah, thanks. It was really affirming or something because like of all things that I've made, you know, like like short films and music or whatever, that particular film has been the thing that people have watched the most, have talked about the most, has got the most views online, and
really great.
It's almost like I wasn't involved, because I see it as like, wouldn't it have been nice to have made that? You know?
Really, yeah. Well, that's good sign then. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. You're not turning away anything. Christ.
Good comments underneath something. Must have been someone else. But but that was just that was great.
No, it was really
and what a way
fun,
to spend a bit of time too, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a nice social thing as well. Yeah, that was good fun. Definitely.
I was thinking about something about this was it. When every year, apart from the last year, that's a given anyway, but like every year probably for the last 30 years, there's probably been a bunch of Irish comedians. I would say maybe you could say there might be, maybe in a good year, I'm just guessing now, but I'm going to guess there could be 50 on a good year that might go to London to want to try to do comedy, as in move to London.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of out of touch with that, so I don't know, but I could imagine,
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, it's probably, that number's a bit high, but I'm just saying, like, just to maybe kind of make an extreme example out of it, like, because comedy is so big now, like, people would be going over, loads of people, I'm going to try to do it in London probably, you know, every year.
Yeah.
And just thinking back that time you went, it was probably just yourself, like.
Well, it wasn't really. Bizarrely, there was already 4.
Okay, 4.
Well, not already 4. There was Kevin McAleer. There's also Ian McPherson, who became a writer. And Owen O'Neill, who still does it, as far as I know.
Oh yeah, Owen O'Neill. He's
so
great.
There's Owen is from the north. Owen is from Tyrone, the same county as Kevin McAleer, and at least I think he is anyway. So there was already Kevin, Owen, and Ian doing it. So I think a lot of people think I was the first because I was on Friday Night Live, I think.
Okay.
And once you're on television, they kind of see you as, you know, you must be the only Irish comedian over there. But I wasn't actually. It was. And I think Sean Hughes had come over around the same time as well. I know he had him.
Yeah. But still, it's fairly few people. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
Compared to what it is now, I'm sure. Yeah, compared to what it is now. But also the fact that I think Owen and Ian were actually living in London. They didn't go there from Ireland to do comedy. They were already living in London
right.
doing other things, and they decided to do comedy while they were there, kind of thing. So it wasn't like it wasn't an exodus of Irish comedians to London like it probably is now. You know?
Yeah. I was just curious, like how did that feel to be doing something that was so kind of like really probably a little unusual actually at the time?
Well, it was amazing, particularly for me, because I'd been in and out of jobs for years. I was brought up in a kind of residential area, South Dublin, and just doing all these kind of jobs I hated, like insurance and accountancy and things like that.
Yeah.
But
I couldn't imagine it, you know.
No, but I mean, it was horrendous. But that kind of was the kind of it was the kind of culture I lived in. It wasn't my parents didn't force me into it, but it was kind of like that's what everybody did from that area. You wouldn't think of becoming a plumber or a chef. Kind of either the kind of school I went to. You kind of went into accountancy or law or that kind of thing, or an architect or something. You wouldn't have thought of doing anything else outside of those kind of 3 or 4 careers. And there was no history of comedy in Ireland apart from the mother-in-law merchants and that kind of thing, you know. The kind of chicken in a basket on a Sunday afternoon somewhere. So yeah, it was just hugely liberating for me because for a long time I just thought this is my life, you know. I mean, I nearly went insane because I thought I can't do this for 50 years because I hate it and it's just no point, you know. So I had no idea what I was going to do. It was just horrible for about 10 years. I used to dread every Sunday night going into work the next morning because I knew there was a week of drudgery and boredom ahead of me.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I love that. I love that. It's really inspiring, though. You know, I find that really inspiring. Like you just went with it. You know, you just said like, this isn't. I feel stuck here. I'm just going to go for this, and you just did it. Yeah.
I think in the end, I just had to. I just would have literally would have cracked up and ended up in a psychiatric hospital somewhere for life. Genuinely, I mean, I'm saying that in a slightly facetious way, but I think I would have snapped, you know. If I hadn't found something. But I suppose in my head I was determined to find something. I didn't know what it was. I was determined I would find a way out of this. Almost a prison.
Yeah. Oh, it's really nice to hear about that side of it, you know. A kind of a bit of freedom, really. Yeah,
it was totally. Yeah, I mean, it was a combination, I say, of that being released from that environment, and also the fact that I was doing something that I really liked. You know.
Yeah, that's cool. Your style as well is, you know, it's kind of legendary, but the way you deliver stuff. Can you remember any specific like jokes that you had when you started off on the circuit there that time?
Yeah, well, I literally only had, I think I had 2 jokes.
All right.
When I arrived in London.
That's brilliant. That's a lot. That's confidence.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't really. It was naivety, really. You know. The first joke was I'd already written it in Ireland. It was just came into my head one day, and it's that I still sometimes use this. That like most people from Ireland, I was born a Catholic, which actually came as a bit of a shock to my parents, who were both Protestants. And then on the train from Holyhead to London, on the way to, I thought of another joke, which was there's one thing I noticed you have in England which we don't have in Ireland. Birmingham. I've
never heard that one.
Have you not? No. I think I did that on Friday Night Live. Maybe I didn't. I don't know.
Oh my God.
But, they were the only 2 jokes I had when I arrived. So I mean, I think I spent a couple of weeks trying to write more material when I was in London because I knew I couldn't go on. Even though you only had to do, as an open spot, you only had to do 4 or 5 minutes. In fact, if you did over, they'd be pissed off. So I knew I couldn't go on and just do 2 jokes. So I had to try and write more material very quickly. But I think those 2 jokes were my mainstay. I think I used to open with them, and then the material I'd written within those 2 weeks I kind of used to try and shove in there, which probably wasn't as strong. I can't remember. Yeah. But gradually, as time went on, just built it up, you know.
Yeah, that's really cool. Did you when you like did the Father Ted thing, when that kind of uh, I guess when that just became really well known at the time,
Yeah.
did you notice like a big were people like recognizing you all the time, or were you
It
getting a
took a
bit of that?
while. It took a while. Didn't get that much at the start, and I think it was. I don't know whether I told you this. Did I tell you this during the last time we did the podcast where you had to where the sound wasn't right. The
Yeah.
first time that it really hit me, I think it was about. It was probably about 2 years after the episode had been shown on television. But I think it'd been. If an episode, if you're just in one episode and it's shown and then it's not repeated, people are not going to remember you. It has to be repeated 3 or 4 times, I think, before your face starts getting
Yeah.
kind of recognised. And yeah, the first time I really noticed was I was living in London at the time, and my girlfriend was manager of a restaurant. We lived in the flat above the restaurant because that came with her job as manager. But there was a hatch leading from the restaurant up to our flat, and that's how she used to come up in the evening because going around the back was a bit dodgy at night. But anyway, she rang me one evening. This was before cigarettes were banned inside, and she said she'd forgotten her cigarettes and would I mind coming to the hatch and dropping her cigarettes down because she wanted to have a cigarette after work. So I got her cigarettes and I went to the hatch. But in the meantime, she'd been distracted by a customer, so she wasn't underneath the hatch. But it was quite a small restaurant, and there was a table with a couple underneath the hatch.
Yeah.
So I opened up the hatch, which was quite noisy. I looked down. I couldn't. She wasn't there, but I just saw this couple, and they obviously were distracted by the sound of the hatch opening, and they looked up, and they would have seen what looked basically like my disembodied face of Father Stone staring down. And the guy looked at me for a few seconds, and he genuinely looked bewildered, and he said, "Jesus, it's Father Stone." So that's the first time I can recall sort of being recognised, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's never been that intrusive since. I mean, I don't get, people come up to me in restaurants or stopping me in the street all the time. It's not like that. It's occasionally, I do get people in the street saying, "Would you mind if I took a selfie?" and all that. But I mean, it's not. They don't pin me up against a wall and ask me to tell stories. They just take a selfie and then just go. It's fine. It's not a major thing. It's not a big disruption to my life or anything. But it's nice. Also nice to be recognised as well, to be honest.
Yeah. It must have been cool as well, like, because just getting the show, and after doing comedy for many years, and like it's like it's I know it's a good marker that things are going well, and like
totally,
and just to be part of something that
something so iconic. It was great.
That's
so it's
awesome.
hiding my profile as well in every way, which is great, But I mean, you're talking about the thing about being recognised as I say, it's not really intrusive for me. It doesn't disrupt my life much, but I can imagine what it's like if you're really, really famous, because I'm not sure if I told you the story. My sons told me that a friend of theirs was on a bus one day going by the block of flats I lived in, and there was a couple of women, and they looked over to the flats that I live in, and they said, that guy from Father Ted lives in the penthouse of one of those flats, and apparently he's a cocaine addict. But I mean, that's minor celebrity. Imagine what it's like if you're really well known. Imagine the amount of nonsense stories that go about.
That's
apparently
amazing.
he's a cocaine addict.
Oh my God, yeah. That's amazing, man.
I live in the penthouse. I lived on the ground floor, in fact, so neither was true.
Yeah, I live on the ground floor, okay?
Yeah, and I don't have any cocaine.
Brilliant. Yeah, and so, what was the, what was the impetus that made you decide to move to Glasgow then after living in London?
I'd kind of been doing the circuit in London for a long time, and I was kind of getting a bit fed up, but I wasn't really moving on. I was kind of finding it hard to write new material, and I think I was just getting fed up doing the whole thing, really, to be honest. And my girlfriend at the time, who was also the mother of my kids, was from Glasgow, from Glasgow, and we'd gone up quite a few times, and I quite liked the kind of feel of the place. And also we'd twin sons who were quite young, and we'd no family in London, but she had a mother and stepfather in Glasgow. And we didn't specifically go up so they would babysit or anything, but it's kind of nice to have kind of family support if you've got young kids. So
Yeah.
And she'd been offered a job up in Glasgow, and I was getting fed up with the circuit in London, so we just went basically.
Yeah.
It wasn't a career move.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
It was only the stand wasn't even open in Glasgow then. You know?
Yeah. It's
So
such
I think I was basically a house husband for about 2 or 3 years, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a cool city, though, Glasgow. I really love it.
It's great, yeah. I really like it. Yeah, it's a lovely place.
Yeah.
Something special about it, all right.
The times I've been up there, actually went up to, was kind of doing a gig there one time, where, in the stand one time, and then I met you up there as well, and then we went up to shoot. And I was up there to meet my cousin there as well. I have a cousin who lives there.
That's right. I remember you meeting.
Yeah,
I met you
exactly.
for lunch out. Yeah. That's right,
And it's just that was like January 2020, so like before the coronavirus thing.
Just before the lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I had an amazing few days just wandering around. I went into the gallery there. The
Gallery of Modern Art.
Incredible.
Great, yeah.
So I'll be back anyway whenever this is over.
This nonsense is all done with.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be back for sure. And are you still thinking of like writing some projects? Like I know you had some stuff on the go before, like you were talking about a radio thing and.
So writing a radio thing, I can't remember that. No, I'm involved in a radio thing. No, not writing it. I'm involved in a show called it's called Fags, Mags and Bags on Radio 4.
Okay, cool.
It's written by guys called Johnny McCleary and Sajeev Kohli.
Okay.
Two guys based in Glasgow. It's been going for 9 series on Radio 4.
Wow.
And I wasn't in from the start. I've only been in the last 4 series, I think.
Okay, cool.
But I played the part of a bishop. and move up from a priest, but it's kind of it's similar to Father Stone in a way, but it's obviously I've a lot more to say. There's a bit more words involved rather than just standing there saying I'm fine. But it's a really funny show. I really like it. I said there's already been 9 series, so
yeah,
hopefully there'll be another one. But I've no part in the writing of it. No.
Yeah.
But as I told you earlier, I'm writing that the Diary of a Comedian in Lockdown. That's kind of taking up most of my time at the moment, as well as doing the shout-outs for irishify.com.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not hanging around at a loose end too much, you know.
Cool. Yeah, I can't wait to read some of that sometime. It sounds great.
I probably have to try and self-publish it because it's so hard to get a writing agent and then get it published. You know, I'll probably just self-publish and try and sort of publicize it on Twitter and Facebook and the like.
Yeah. Well, it sounds good anyway, Michael. And I don't know. I think that, like in my time doing comedy, like you know, like I always like found you literally the nicest kind of person on the circuit that I met. You know what I mean? It really, just really like
totally false.
But yeah, you're always so kind of open and like kind of. Just really nice and like I really appreciate the friendship that we developed as well. You know, it's really
likewise,
cool.
Likewise, you're a good mate. Yeah, don't worry. It's not two-sided.
Yeah. Thanks, man. So thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
A pleasure as ever, mate. Yeah, hopefully, as you say, see you up in Glasgow, or maybe I'll be down in London. You don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. We might swap over. One day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I might go
train. Yeah.
Okay, folks. Thanks for listening. What a lovely guy. What a lovely chat. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here on the show. Remember to sign up at patreon.com/Emmet O'Malley, and also look up Michael on irishify.com and request a shout out for someone you know. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely, lovely week, and I will be back here next week with another podcast. See you soon. Thanks for listening.